Why is West Virginia so rich? Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't West Virginia one of the poorest states in the United States? And yes, you'd be correct, but when you look at the rest of the world, West Virginia is actually one of the richest places on earth. In fact, West Virginia is even richer than the United Kingdom. And this is in spite of the fact that, at least on the face of it, the UK has significantly more economic advantages than West Virginia. For one thing, the UK isn't landlocked or geographically isolated from the rest of its neighbors by vast mountain chains. Demographically, it has more than 30 times as many people as West Virginia. Financially, its capital serves as a global banking center, and its economy is far more diverse than that of West Virginia. As the fifth largest economy in the entire world, shouldn't the UK be blowing West Virginia out of the water? Well, in many respects, it does. To give the UK some credit, it does have a slightly higher human development index than West Virginia. And I'm sure if you asked anyone on the street which one is more prosperous, they'd almost certainly choose London over Charlestown. And yet, if you told that same man or woman on the street what I'm about to tell you, they'd probably be stunned. Because contrary to all the popular conceptions of the two places, and despite all the inherent economic advantages the UK has in this contest, the average citizen in the United Kingdom is still poorer. In fact, if the UK were a part of the US, it would be among the most poorest states in the Union, barely richer than Mississippi and Arkansas, and poorer than West Virginia and Alabama. Consider this, when adjusted for population and currency rates, the GDP per capita of the UK stands at just over $47,000. To put that number in comparison, it means that one of America's poorest states is wealthier than one of Europe's richest countries. Of course, GDP figures can be misleading, and we're comparing one state to an entire country here. So what about median household income? West Virginia still beats out the British competition. And with the collapse of the British pound over the past year, that gap has actually gotten worse. Now, there's some evidence to suggest that because of record inflation, the UK is on the verge of overtaking West Virginia in many of these categories. But that just begs the question. Because despite of all of its problems, the state government of West Virginia has gone out of its way to, well, get out of the way. Over the past decade, as Parliament has raised taxes, grown government spending, and imposed new regulations on its citizens, the legislature in West Virginia has been doing exactly the opposite. The top individual tax rate is lower than the UK's, even when adding in US federal taxes on top of it. And while the UK historically had a lower corporate tax rate than West Virginia, those two figures have been moving in the opposite direction for the past decade. And the UK has nearly 3 times as much government spending as a share of its GDP than West Virginia. Bottom line, our concepts of poverty and wealth are affected by our surroundings and the comparisons we choose to consider. But one thing seems overwhelmingly evident. Regardless of impression, it's certainly better to be comparatively poor in a rich and free society than one where your government is constantly interfering in your business.